Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. East Tennessee usually gets a late snow or an ice storm sometime in March, folks. Be prepared if that happens this year. Daniel Hood Roofing can provide an ice and water shield for your home. Line up a free estimate by calling Daniel Hood Roofing today. They'll take care of you many different ways. Visit their website. You're going to see testimonials from East Tennesseans all talking about what a great job Daniel Hood Roofing did on their homes with their roofs. DanielHoodRoofing.com. All right, take a look at this list here. I'm going to show you these. This is who would fit in the Big Ten. Look, the Big Ten for years has brought in schools that were members of the American Association of Universities. These are basically giant research universities, and they share their money. And the Big Ten has a consortium, an academic consortium. They make more combined money with their academic side in terms of research grants than they do these football TV contracts. Think about that. So this is not just, oh yeah, academics. With them, it's cash and academics. Now, Nebraska joined, then they lost their AAU membership, their AAU status. The Big Ten didn't kick them out. But basically, you got to be in it to get in, typically is what they've said in the past. Here's who's in it in the ACC. Duke, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Pitt, and Virginia. I don't see the Big Ten going after Duke or Georgia Tech. I could see them going after North Carolina because they know that the Rust Belt's moving to the Sun Belt. That's why they went and got Maryland. I could see them going after Virginia. I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh somehow got in there. If you're thinking Penn State wouldn't want them, Penn State tried to get them to join a Big East Conference years before they went to the Big Ten. And Penn State's kind of like Arkansas in this conference. They moved into that league. Yes, they have big games against Ohio State, but they don't have a true rival. Never did. Pitt would be one. I don't think anybody else on that list would be high on the Big Ten's target list if the ACC blew apart. Notre Dame at the bottom. Look, they're not a full member of the ACC, but they play football with them. They're not a member of the AAU. That is the exception to the rule. There's no question that the Big Ten would want Notre Dame. It's another reason they might go after someone like Pitt, a team that has a long history of playing Notre Dame. If they could add Stanford, USC, which they're adding, Pitt, then you got Northwestern, Michigan State, and Purdue. Those are all Notre Dame's biggest rivals outside of Army and Navy. Okay, now there's a reason to get Notre Dame in there. But anyway, that's kind of your Big Ten fit. Let's move to the next graphic. Football attendance. If you're thinking from an SEC point of view, you look at attendance, not academics. And the SEC averaged 81,000. You take Vanderbilt out last year, the other 15 schools averaged 81,000. No one in the ACC averages that, which is shocking. It's just not a football league. Clemson, the closest, Notre Dame, of course, Florida State, Virginia Tech, then down to NC State, then down to Miami and Pitt. So let's flip that over. Next page. Who would the SEC be interested in? My opinion, you guys can argue. I think Clemson and Florida State are no-brainers. Yep. I think if they could get Notre Dame and or North Carolina, they would do it. I don't think North Carolina it's a big land-grant university. It fits the profile, but a 50,000-seat football stadium, they average 47,000 fans. They don't fit to me like a Notre Dame would, but those four, Virginia Tech or Virginia, if the money people are talking, they're going after Virginia Tech. If the presidents get together and they're smoking pipes and they're saying, ooh, Thomas Jefferson's University, then it would be Virginia.
In that voice.
In that voice. I don't think Miami would be on the list. I think that's a big draw, but they don't have great fan support, and also they don't fit the SEC profile. That's a private school. I don't see them getting in. Duke or NC State, the only hope they have is if North Carolina said, we'll come if you bring in one of these guys, and I don't see that happening. If Oklahoma didn't do that with Oklahoma State, right, and Texas A&M certainly didn't do that with Texas, I don't see that happening. So I see Clemson, Florida State, Notre Dame and North Carolina, and then probably Virginia Tech. Tell me where I'm right or wrong, gentlemen, for the SEC's targets.
You're definitely right about Clemson and Florida State as home runs.
Yep.
Notre Dame is sort of complicated because when you talk about conferences, I think the days of this is a wholesale embrace of a university as a conference are kind of over. I think people realize these are football associations. Like, that's what this is. But Notre Dame is one institution. And I think Notre Dame, being Notre Dame, would look around at the SEC and be like, I don't love these guys. I don't love these guys.
And what I'm saying is this is the SEC looking at targets they
Yeah,
can go after.
but I think that's the thing with
I don't
Notre
think- I
Dame.
think
Notre
they-
Dame will have its pick forever, and they're going to be
Big
independent.
Ten is
Yeah, they're going to go Big Ten if they can. Now you could chase them if you're the SEC because again, it's like
the brand.
Tennessee trying to hire Nick Saban. It's like why not? The
Yeah.
worst they can say is no. So I think that now North Carolina is really complicated because you hit on a lot of really good points, and I think one thing you gloss over too is the NC State problem. Could you break them up? I'm not sure you could. That would
Oklahoma
be
and
tough.
Oklahoma State can break. Texas, if UCLA and Cal, part of the same system,
Yeah.
can break, I think NC
It all just depends. I think the Oklahoma conversation is kind of weird because part of the reason why they broke up was they had some really, really tight relationships among the ADs and the presidents in the 2010s, and they had some trust and some love for each other, and then they had turnover in the president's office, and then they didn't care about each other, so then now all of a sudden those relationships are fraught. So things change. It's a complicated issue. I think North Carolina would be somewhat uninspiring for a lot of the reasons that you hit on.
It's just like they fit the map.
Yeah.
It's kind of the reason to do it. It doesn't fit
I think
to me.
Miami,
Kentucky.
Miami, you hit on, as a university, and Miami has a lot of issues. But I think at the end of the day, if you can play good football and you can recruit, Miami makes a lot of sense for the SEC.
Well, and then who knows? Maybe North Carolina has plans for a larger stadium, and then that helps you with that attendance portion of it.
if you can feel it.
If you can feel it, that's still,
And if an academic is running North Carolina, they may prefer the Big Ten.
Yeah.
If Virginia and
Right.
Maryland are up there, they may look at that, and maybe the Big Ten takes Duke as well. So now you've got several of your old rivals going. I don't know.
the package deal that you showed at the bottom in that last scenario, I think it'd be tough to leverage the SEC. I think the only one that could have leverage on their side is a Notre Dame. I could see,
Yeah.
a conference adding schools, like you said,
Big Ten.
that were regular rivals of theirs. in
Stanford
order-
and Pitt,
right,
we'll get them.
as the bait to bring them in. I don't know. You do that to the SEC.
I think if you're the Big Ten, you have some responsibility to help USC and UCLA and embrace being a bi-coastal
Yeah.
league. So if I'm the Big Ten, Washington and Oregon are my next two calls. Whenever that becomes a reality. So
See, I would see Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and Notre Dame. Big Ten. That would mean because here's the thing: Notre Dame's going to remain independent as long as there's some path to a national title. If the ACC collapses, their path may be disappearing. If everybody's going to a 10-game schedule and you're playing all in your own,
you get squeezed out of scheduling. That
yeah,
could be a
then you're in
problem.
trouble. So I could see those four, and then I could see the SEC adding North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Florida State. Florida State, Clemson are the naturals.
Yes.
And then Virginia Tech's probably next on that list. Although interesting, Justin Hamilton, who played there, coach there, has told me he doesn't think they could compete in the SEC.
Maybe well, they probably couldn't.
Like a
yes,
Mississippi or
you need,
Arkansas,
you
probably.
need, every conference is gonna have a tin can, and that's just like I think that part of this is like you have to have an AD that can have the president and the board's ear to understand. Hey, you may be uncomfortable with this from an academic perspective. Let me show you this $40 million bag of
Yeah, that
cash
changes,
that we're
yeah.
not going to get if you don't get over the fact that you don't like some of these SEC's academics requirements.
The Big Ten, though, however, because of that consortium that they have that makes so much money, they do stick to their AAU guns pretty strong. I do think Notre Dame, though, would be the exception to the rule. All right, when we come back, the NCAA is talking about clock changes for college football to shorten games. Could any of that backfire toward Josh Heupel and his hurry-up offense? We'll discuss that next. Come on back on the Sports Source.